In terms of oil and gas, which is the predominant sector of the economy, I think we will see more projects coming up, and they will try to diversify by going more into the downstream projects. So we are seeing refinery projects which are more good in terms of margins. So you can have the crude, but then you can have the refined products which can give you good margins. So overall, I think the oil market will depend on definitely the price of the oil, and as I said, we expect prices to move up next year. Probably in the second half we will see increased demand coming from emerging markets. So oil market is looking sort of on a neutral base. One of the biggest sectors of Kuwait is banking sector, and if you look at the banking sector is growing. The credit to private sector or the credit market is growing at a sort of a lower single digits. But then if you look at the profitability of banking sector in the 9 month, the banking sector was up around 18 to 20%. Whereas overall the Kuwait stock market, the corporate earnings were up only 2%. So that shows that banking sector is making profit, and there is a huge scope for banking sector in terms of project financing. As I mentioned, there is a huge amount of projects that are coming underway, and probably banking sector might have to align with international banks to provide that kind of project financing. Besides, Kuwaiti banks and Kuwaiti banking sector is also now looking outwards. They have acquired banks in the GCC region or the MENA region, and they are looking at entry into the economies which are much bigger in size. So their revenue stream, which will be much more diversified, and they will be going towards inorganic growth. So I am positive about the banking sector, and even in Islamic banking there is increased competition, and we are seeing new products coming. They are sort of competing on an equal scale with the conventional banking sector. So that is also one area of the growth as people look more towards Islamic banking sector, and there is more products available on the Islamic finance, and one of the product definitely is the sukuk. As I mentioned, the fixed income market, there are a lot of sukuks that are coming out in the region. So the ability of the market to absorb those sukuks has increased tremendously. In terms of real estate sector, it is one of the most important sector, and it is definitely too much correlated with the economic growth and the macroeconomic fundamentals. But I think in the real estate sector, still the yields in Kuwait market are good, and there is a lot of construction activity which is happening, and especially on the high end, which is the malls or the retails. I prefer that segment of the retail sector because the yields on that is very good. And in terms of commercial and residential probably not that much, because there is a sort of a not oversupply, but then the demand supply sort of mismatch might happen in future. But overall in the commercial sector, logistics sector, on the real estate side, I am positive that there might be some things that will be positive for the sector. In terms of telecom, again, the penetration rate in Kuwait in the telecom sector is above 100%. So for the telecom companies within Kuwait, there is sort of less scope for growth. So the companies are looking outside. So companies like Zain did Zain Saudi Arabia, and they are looking at other sort of telecom markets in order to increase their revenues, in order to increase their subscriber base. So telecom sector, I think in Kuwait there'll be churn. There is new player like Viva who is getting market share from the other two major players, and there is churn between the prepaid and the postpaid subscribers. But I think the major growth will come from the inorganic growth or from the outside market, because we are seeing sort of penetration level in Kuwait going much above 100%. So that will have an effect on the telecom sector. Investment sector, again, that is too much dependent on stock markets and the products which are related to stock markets. But then again, the investment sector and the investment banking sector will benefit, and the insurance sector, so sort of financial services sector, will benefit from the mega projects, as I said, that will require their expertise. But if stock market goes down, that will have an effect. So investment companies will have to have a more sort of stable cash flow in terms of the funds and in terms of the investment banking activities or the brokerage activities. So any move up or down in the stock market will sort of directly affect them. If you look at other sectors like consumers, yes, consumer spending is high. So some of the consumer companies, whether discretionary or non-discretionary, always sort of have a sort of a range bound kind of a growth in Kuwait. So again, Kuwait being part of GCC, and GCC now is going more towards the common market. So when you look at GCC region as a whole, there's a lot of opportunities for the Kuwaiti companies, whether it's a bank, whether it's a consumer company, whether it's a telecom company, because if a Kuwaiti company moves out to other economies of the GCC or the MENA region, they have access to a huge kind of a population. If you're looking at consumers, or a bigger economy like Saudi Arabia or Egypt or other North African economies. So yes, they have the benefit that they can sort of increase via inorganic growth or alliances or expansions. Industrial, yes, in the industrial sector, it's mainly, again, it comes from the petrochemical sector or from, let's say, construction materials, cement. That again will have an effect on how they are able to expand themselves in the GCC countries or the MENA countries or internationally. So that growth will be more or less in line with the GDP growth that we might see for the region per se.